And so my secret is that I am my biggest customer. And I've realized that I am part of this really intentional niche that's growing, which is Black and brown women who are looking for community and support, who are, amazingly accomplished, have been successful in a lot of ways, who now decided that we want to bet on ourselves, right? And take what we have to offer directly to market.
Three, two, one. Welcome to the Campfire Circle. I'm your host, Tanya Bhattacharya, and I empower purpose-driven women in building influential personal brands that drive change and raise revenue. We all talk about getting a seat at the table, but why though? Who wants to sit in a stuffy boardroom anyway? Let's reimagine the ultimate space of leadership as a campfire circle, where we share stories that inspire movements, build brave communities to huddle together with for warmth, and where there is always room. Come sit with us.
Kamilah, I'm so excited for this special time together. You and I have been in each other's orbit for some time. You and I have been cross-beaming together for some time. And I'm really looking forward to this deeper one-on-one conversation with you. Welcome to the Campfire Circle.
Thank you so much, Tanya. It's a gift anytime I get to spend time with you. So thank you for reaching out and inviting me to chat with you today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know this will be such a beautiful conversation. And, I think all good things start with a story. They start with a brave story. And so I'd love to invite you, if you're open, to just kind of tell me the story, right, of what you have grown through to become the guide that you are today.
Ooh, guide. That's a great way to describe who I am. So, I think there's so many parts to my story. And I think what I'd like to kind of talk about is just the journey and sort of the various journeys that I've been on that make up my story. And I think one has been a journey of, honestly attempting to manage perfectionism and people pleasing. That's been a thread that's been part of my story probably since I was a very, very young child, and, has been part of personal relationships, professional relationships, how I've grown as a leader. So, that is certainly a large part of my journey to where I am today. I think another journey is attempting to heal really from unhealthy and toxic relationships. And again, this is personal and professional, and learning more about how and where I perpetuate potentially kind of toxicity is interesting. I had a conversation recently about ego, which was something that has been coming up with me a lot lately. And, I think a lot of my sort of self-awareness journey and self-actualization journey is about, understanding ego and where that has come into play in different areas and aspects of my life. So lots of personal healing really is part of my story as well. Most recently, I think I've articulated, and it's interesting that I've landed here, but I've been on a journey to create and build environments and teams and communities where people can just show up and be and feel safe and thrive. And if I, really think back on that, that's really been a part of me for as long as I can remember. I sent out an email to my email list not too long ago, and my mom is on it. And she replied basically saying like, girl, this is stuff you've been doing since you were, a kid. And it was just so interesting to have that reflection brought back on me, because she's right. Like, I was the captain of my dance team, and we were a great squad together. I went and did stuff in college, and that's been something, that's been part of my story throughout. So it's really interesting to see now that is really a core foundation of a lot of the work that I do, both as a consultant as well as an entrepreneur, and it's been there. It's been there from the beginning. So overall, I would think that my journey, probably like many of ours, is really a journey of evolution. And there's so many stories that are interwoven sort of in there, but it's about evolution and ultimately liberation. I think that is where I've settled now in this phase of my life is the idea of what I want to bring for both myself and what I want to help others, realize and actualize for themselves as well.
Wow. So two things came up for me there. One is, you shared how, you had different experiences personally, different experiences professionally. And I think so often now, especially as social impact consultants, like those two things are so blended. Like, what is professional anymore? Like, right? We just are integrated. We just live our lives. And the second thing is, I really love when people share how what they are doing now is an extension of what they have been doing their whole lives. And you're just stepping into a higher, not even higher, you're just continuing to step into that greater purpose. And I love, 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 love to see that. I love
Yeah,
to see that.
honestly. And I think for a lot of us, for those of us who, are really into exploring our passions and exploring kind of why we're on this planet at this moment in time, there are pieces and signs, that have been there throughout. And I think, when there's time to reflect and time to just sit and analyze, not necessarily what you think you're supposed to be or the way you're supposed to live your life, but some of those maybe non-tangible threads, that have been consistent throughout your life. I think those are the things to start to pay attention to. And also, I think, on your point of personal versus professional, I love this time that we seem to be entering right now or dipping our toe in right now, where the lines aren't as blurred. Because when I talk about sort of, and maybe we'll get into this, but when I talk about, safe spaces and psychological safety and showing up authentically as your whole self, I think some of the conflict a lot of us, myself personally, have felt in professional careers has been around the fact that we have to separate those things, right? Like, I can't show up in my head wrap if I want to, or, there's just so many ways that we internalize what it means to be one thing or to be something else. And I think the more that we can blur those lines, at least in a world that I want to live in, right? The more we can blur those lines, the more content, like, society we can live in, and I think if people are accepting of that, and I think that's the other challenge and journey, then that's the direction I think we should be going in.
Totally. And I see you live in that life. I see me attempting to live that life. And I think that the more that we do that, it'll ripple out where other people will start to realize, oh, hey, I can do that too. And so that leads me to a question around, I would love, because you and I actually left our full-time nonprofit careers around the same time. Like, I think end of 2020-ish, right? Like, yeah. And, you and I weren't the only ones. There was this wave of really powerhouse change makers who just began leaving the field in droves to begin careers as consultants, as coaches, as service providers. And so I kind of have two questions around this. One is, tell me a little bit, if you're open to it, why you made that decision.
Oh, so let's see. The way I like to talk about this is really by explaining the name of my company, which is Catalyst. So in 2020, there was sort of a series of catalytic events. There was a lot going on in the world. We had sort of racial tensions and people kind of recognizing more in the forefront and more globally, racism, and that sort of rippling and trickling down into professional settings, people's personal lives and family settings and debates. We had a political season that right before that I think stirred up a lot of emotion and energy in people in positive and maybe not so positive ways. And then we had the pandemic, right, which kind of got everyone on the same page around something around the entire world. And so for me, I had a series of emails at a job I was in. I was a vice president of a humanitarian organization that were very troubling to me and sort of made me sort of sit and take pause in whether or not I wanted to sort of to continue to participate in an environment that I felt didn't value me as a Black woman or perspectives of, kind of other young people who were calling out some of the challenges of the times and sort of calling the organization to task. So, it just wasn't a safe space for me anymore to continue to be in that environment. So that experience was my catalyst. That was the line that was drawn in the sand for me when I determined that I can be of more value when I can show up. First of all, when I can choose the kind of people that, I want in my space and choose the kind of people that I want to work with. And then also decide, that I can take my skills and my talents directly to organizations that I felt were more aligned with my lived values. So that was the reason in 2020 that I started. And I had actually pretty immediately a few people reach out to me once they found out and learned about sort of my transition, asking if I could support them in different ways. So one of my colleagues from graduate school became a president at an organization, and she needed some help sort of getting things together and getting the ship in shape, basically, in her early tenure. So I came on and helped her a bit with sort of some thought partnership and strategic fundraising and things like that. And then sort of, projects here and there. And then that turned into other things, which turned into other things, which I'm sure we'll touch on at some point in our conversation today. But, it was an interesting time. And it just was a moment where I had to make the decision of the direction kind of that I wanted to go in that period.
Yeah. I'm so happy you did that. And I remember a LinkedIn poll that you did. It just really stood out to me. It was a LinkedIn poll asking your audience about the hurdles they faced in leaving their kind of full-time nonprofit job to start a consultancy. And, there were a lot of answers in the comments too, right? Like lack of confidence in generating business, giving up, not knowing where to get health insurance, right? But I think that, you have found this and I have found this too. Once we make that leap and we're like, okay, there's no going back, we're making this leap. People come out of the woodwork who love us and want to see us succeed and need our help, right? The aligned people show up, I think, when we make that commitment.
I agree 100%. And I think, part of again, my journey was the getting over the fear of putting myself out there. I was never super active on LinkedIn. I was always shy about sharing, my true story. And then I just stopped doing that. Like I stopped scared and just started sharing more and more. And when I tell you the floodgates that opened and the opportunities that came as a result of that is, you'd be surprised, or maybe you won't be surprised. But, I think that's, one of the first steps that I recommend to anyone that I'm working with. As uncomfortable as it is, I'm very much an introvert in many different ways. And I think the more you kind of find your story, the way you opened our talk today, and also put yourself out there are people that story is going to resonate with. And as also we alluded to already, you're putting yourself out there and sharing your vulnerabilities, sharing the ups and downs, I think gives people freedom or makes them feel like they have more power in doing that for themselves. So LinkedIn has been gold for me in a lot of different ways. I've actually made some great friends on LinkedIn. And yeah, as the more I put myself out there, I think the more the universe opened to bring me various opportunities and various people, that can help me reach some of the goals that I have.
Absolutely. 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 I want to ask you a little bit more about the second part of the question I was going to ask you earlier, which I almost forgot to ask you, because the nonprofit field is changing so rapidly. Everything is changing so rapidly. But how do you see the nonprofit field or the social impact space, evolving as a result of this trend of so many highly skilled individuals starting consultancies, right?
Yeah. And I think the main thing, the root of that, really, I want to say because of 2020 and everything that it was, is that people are tired. I think people are tired. First of all, I think workforces of any kind are made up of people, right? And everything that people are bringing to the table. And I think the fact that people are tired and the fact that they're more discerning and sort of, not as afraid to call out bullshit anymore, or to call out, what they're feeling internally as being part of an organization, I think that's going to continue to make a lot of the spaces that we navigate and shift. And I personally feel like that's a positive thing. And I think we either need to, get with the program and figure out how to navigate that, or, you're going to be one of the people that are kind of stuck dealing with turnover and unsatisfied employees and that sort of thing. So, what I would love to see around this conversation is a shift in the thinking around power dynamics in our field, because I think, you're going to have employees that, may leave to find another lateral position or work with an organization that they feel more aligned in. But I think in terms of your question of changing the sector and sort of the differences that might come up as a result of this time that we're in, I'm more confident in that change when we start to see changes in board makeup. We start to see changes in sort of the whole conversation around donors and the power dynamic of donors and the power structure really of, the development and fundraising sides of our organization versus the mission sides of our organization. I don't think our sector is going to change until we're looking at the people who hold the power, right? And I think that's, across the board around the world, the way our system works. So what I would love to see is some of these people who are leaving, these highly qualified people who have been leading organizations, leading multi-million-dollar budgets. I'd love to see them bring some of their friends along and figure out this board situation that we have, and also to, sort of democratize fundraising a bit, and so it's not just kind of multi-million dollar funders who, generously kind of give, but also people who are closer to some of the situations and challenges that our sector and our field are trying to resolve. So I think, across the board, I think that's one of the biggest ways that we can see improvement in our sector around this trend that we're seeing of people leaving, going into independent consulting, which gives you a lot more freedom and free time. So maybe using some of that free time to, contribute in other ways to some of the structural challenges of our field.
Yeah, it gives you freedom and free time, but it also gives you a lot of freedom in terms of like latitude of what you can and can't say, And so I think that we have a really unique opportunity now to build platforms, shedding light on some of the things that maybe we have gone through that need to change to get us towards a more just future. So it's freedom and liberation in all kinds of ways. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And which is great. Freedom and liberation for all.
Yes. Yes. So in this journey, right, of launching and growing a social impact consultancy, like I have realized how important productizing our services is. Like that's a thing that we have to figure out. Like we have all this expertise, we have all this skill set, we have all this know-how in our brain, but like how do we get it out of our brain and our hearts and package it up to support our clients? And so I think you have an incredible offer suite, like such a cool offer suite that the things that you provide are so varied, but also so related. And they're just awesome. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about what you offer, like what your offer suite is and like your process in creating that offer suite.
Sure. Well, thank you for asking that. I would say the one theme across everything that we do is safety, a community, and liberation, kind of not to beat that word kind of throughout our whole conversation today, but I think that ultimately is what we do. And so my secret is that I am my biggest customer. And I've realized that I am part of this really intentional niche that's growing, which is Black and brown women who are looking for community and support, who are, amazingly accomplished, have been successful in a lot of ways, who now decided that we want to bet on ourselves, right? And take what we have to offer directly to market, for lack of a better word. And so when literally everything we've done in the last 2 years, and maybe I don't know if this is the best business advice in the world, but literally everything we've done in the past 2 years has been about what I need, as a new consultant, what I need in this moment in time as a Black woman leader, what I need to feel safe and to thrive, how I need to be taken care of. And that is really how we show up in every single thing that we do. And so we do primarily 3 things. The first thing is a mastermind community of nonprofit consultants who are transitioning from their W-2 nonprofit work, either mostly in executive or director level roles, into independent consulting. And that came about because when I was transitioning 2 years ago, I was like, where do I go? What do I do? Who do I talk to? How do I do this? And again, the more and more I started telling that story, the more people started reaching out to me in DMs and messages saying, oh my goodness, this resonates with me too. Tell me how you did it. And I was just like, well, I'm learning as I'm going. Why don't I just build this community of people? I'll bring in experts to teach all of us, right? And so that was the first thing that we did. We have this very safe and vulnerable community where women are building each other up as they're building their businesses. And, I say safety is a thread because I really do feel that what caused me to leave in 2020 was a lack of psychological safety. And so I was just desperate in that moment to be in communities and be in spaces where I didn't have to explain, where I didn't have to code switch, where I didn't have to, again, show up certain ways, that I could just be, right? And be who I was, ask the questions I needed to ask, offer what I needed to offer with a community of people who just would get it. And so that was the community we built. And we've done a couple of cohorts. We started out with a cohort model and we transitioned recently to just sort of a membership model, which is, we meet a few times a month, bring in a coach to help us work with real-time challenges that we're facing, and we work with each other through it. So that's been an amazing and incredible experience. And, if I could just do that full time, I would be so fulfilled in that. And, that is really one of my goals, really building that space, letting people know it's there, and just letting them know that the door is open for them to experiment, on themselves and to try this out in a very kind of loving and safe environment. The second thing is our Fill Your Cup retreats, which along the same lines are about safety and luxury and pouring into Black and brown women. I needed that, last year. And, one of the things that we do is luxury. I think I've done mountain retreats. I've done, things where it's, you're kind of centering yourself in silent retreat sort of mode. But this was all about like pamper, because I was like, I took care of my team. I take care of my family. I just want to freaking be taken care of. And so we handle everything. We invite 15 women to come to a beautiful, luxurious space, and we have a coach that comes in to talk about, visioning and planning and how to get unstuck and that sort of thing. But really, it's just a space to exhale, and it's a space of other women in similar positions to, just be and just to do them, and to figure out whatever and be okay with whatever that means for each person. So what I'll say is with the retreats, some people come wanting to do all the things and the horseback riding and the, the brahmology, mixology classes, and some just come and want to sleep because they don't have that. And they come and want nobody calling their name, right? And so you show up in that space and you take from it whatever it is that you need. And then the third thing that I personally do is consulting with nonprofit organizations during leadership transition. And I really think one of my gifts is creating kind of authentic and safe spaces. And I think that is important when you're dealing with kind of transitions, trust challenges, teams needing to be restabilized and that sort of thing. So, my past couple of gigs have been with organizations where chief program officers or chiefs of staff have left and they need someone to come in and help kind of fix things for a while they're hiring their full-time person. So that's the space I love to be in. I love working with people. I love, having people know that this is an environment where we can work together to get out of this what we each need. And it can be sort of a community effort of, to get common goals met. So that's what I personally do in my consulting practice. So that was a lot. Maybe I should cut back a little bit.
No, don't cut back. I think it's freaking amazing. And there's so many things that came up while you were sharing. And one of the biggest things is that there is so much power in picking a niche or serving a niche that is the person we once were or still are. And I just literally, just before this, right before our call, I just finished a coaching call with the Kindling Collective. And somebody was asking, can I niche down to just serve Black entrepreneurs? I'm a Black entrepreneur and I want to serve them, but is that too specific? I don't know if I can really do that. And I love seeing you do this as an example and it creating so much safety and belonging and community and an attraction for the people who need to be there. I think it is so powerful. So listen, I know you want to stand out as a go-to, influential, trusted voice on LinkedIn, not just to boost your revenue and raise your rates, but to also drive change and build community with other decision makers. That's why I created this free masterclass for people who are serious about turning their LinkedIn into a hub of opportunities without spending a ton of time online or creating content. I'm demystifying LinkedIn once and for all by sharing actual to-do lists and the same insights I've taught to over 50 social impact entrepreneurs, so they too can be lazy on LinkedIn. Even by spending 1 hour on LinkedIn, my clients attract aligned, hell yes clients, inspire people to think differently about the misunderstood issues that they work on, and book dreamy podcast spots and paid speaking opportunities. So if you're interested in working with me to build up your brand as an approachable authority, apply for your spot in the free masterclass using the link in the show notes. Okay, back to the episode.
It's been so interesting because you would think it's the other way. You would think you need to reach more people and you need to appeal. But honestly, the more I niche down, first of all, like you said, you attract the people that should be there. So it saves you a lot of time, right? Of weeding out, folks that don't need to be there or dealing with people who are unhappy because you're spelling out specifically what it is that you do, who you're doing it for. And for me, our model is that it's something that I need because I'm that person. I am them, right? And so I trust my instincts with, again, safety and vulnerability and authenticity and community. So if I feel like that's something that I would want to receive, more than likely I've found so far it's something that if we offer it, then that's, what others seem to need as well because we're so niche. So I really think there's power in finding your community. And, if you think of, all the big brands and things like, I don't know, Apple, like, they have something and a community of people that need something that they offer. They don't necessarily try to do all the things. And again, you can think about a lot of other big organizations and companies that do the same thing. It's a matter of, again, finding those people who need what it is that you have to offer. And in my case, needing who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so rich. That's so good. That is so good.
But I will say, Tanya, that there's a lot of self-work in that because you have to figure out who you are, right?
Yes.
And I think, that's part of that journey that I mentioned at the top of the conversation. I've just been doing a lot of work in the last couple of years of recognizing why I show up certain ways, why I need certain things. And I really think it's made me a better person, but I also think it's impacted, my business because I can go into something pretty clear about the direction because I know what it is that I need because I know who I am, and I think if I'm out here, kind of operating from a place of scarcity or from a place of, just still trying to figure everything out about myself or still kind of meeting that kind of people pleasing perfectionist thing that I used to carry around, then I mean, like you can get so bogged down, in operating and existing in that space. But once you sort of nail down and have a more clarity around who you are, I just think everything in life tends to become smoother.
1,000,000,000%. I mean, whether you go at it from the point of view where you're trying to do the personal work and it trickles over and ripples over into the entrepreneurial journey, or you're like, okay, I'm on this entrepreneurial journey. I need to figure out a couple of things. It ripples out the other way into your personal life. And so whether you're, coming up with your values and figuring out how to embody them, whether you're coming up with your vision and like the world that you're trying to create as a result of everything that you do, including your business, right? Whether you're trying to figure out those pieces that you need to, those habits, those behaviors and actions you need to stop doing so you can fully embody that vision and those values, which, you shared, perfectionist tendencies, people pleasing tendencies. I definitely, I can definitely relate to that. And so, yeah, I mean, 1,000%, 1,000%.
Yeah. And I don't know what kind of big self-help guru it was, but, maybe Simon Sinek about the why. I really think it's all bundled up into the same thing. Like figuring out who you are helps you articulate your why because it's very personal to you.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the retreat concept that you did, the Fill Your Cup retreat, is such a great addition to your, I don't know if you'd consider it in your offer suite or just something amazing that you do, maybe both, but I would love to know a little bit more about the behind the scenes if you're willing to share. Because I think that now that, we can travel again in a deeper way, I know a lot of people who are thinking about, hey, maybe okay, so this is what I'm thinking. And I don't know if this is true or not. This is just a guess. I think that over time, people are continuing to get more and more burnt out on virtual conferences, on showing up online. They're like, I've been on Zoom for 2.5 years. Like, I want to go to Jamaica. And so I think there's going to be more of these curated, small, intimate, community building, retreat style things popping up. And I would love to know more about your take on what it was like, your advice for someone thinking about having a retreat, and anything you'd like to share around that space.
Yeah. So first of all, I'll say that I love remote working and I love remote existing in community because, well, first of all, I've done it for 10 years. Like before remote and Zoom were even a thing, I was running teams starting in 2012 that were completely virtual teams around the country, actually around the world. And so I've seen the power of them. I think they're great. I think it gives you the opportunity to meet people from all over that you might not otherwise be able to meet. I completely understand how draining and exhausting that they can be when that's your only option. But I don't think that should necessarily go away. And I think that there's room for balance. And I do agree that, people are kind of craving opportunities to be around people and people are craving community. So I didn't set a New Year's resolution this year, but my word for 2022 was community. So interestingly, that's just, since I set that intention, everything that we've built has been around community. So I think that, again, along this topic of niche, I think there are going to be so many opportunities for people to figure out what specifically it is that they might need in the particular moment and to find or create that sort of experience for people. And you don't have to go out and market to 100, 500 people conference. It can be intimate. And I feel the more intimate, the better. And so my experience last year when we first did it, again, was born out of my need to just, I think the way I put it was like, I was having a group chat with two of my girls and I was like, we were talking about life. I'm like, why don't we just come together and chill in a lazy river and have like awesome food and, and figure out life. And then that turned into the retreat. So I did it completely on my own last year. It was an idea that I had, put it out there to a few people, built a landing page, negotiated with the hotel, did everything. And it was freaking exhausting. And I said, my cup is not full. I went in hoping to fill my cup and named it that. And I came out completely depleted. And so that's when I realized that I need a team. And again, in this entrepreneurial journey, you can continue to fall into that burnout cycle unless you have people around you who can support you. So that was one thing this year that I knew that I absolutely needed in order for it to A, be everything it could be and more, and also B, for me to be able to show up the way that I needed to show up in that space and to get out of it what I needed personally. So selfishly, right? And so this year it was like a whole other level up. Like we did a fabulous, like 5-star luxury resort in Montego Bay, Jamaica. It's interesting, going back to LinkedIn, I had put a post out on LinkedIn last year at the end of the retreat saying, I want to do this again. I want to find a Black run or a Black managed resort or Black owned resort, like tell me where to go. And 2 people recommended the place that we ended up at this year. So power of community, power of social media, whatever you want to call it. So I started the negotiation process and then hired an event planner, Lauren Wellman, who is incredible, to run our event. So she helped with registration. She helped with communicating with our attendees. She helped with negotiating and things with the hotel. And then I also splurged on a videographer who put together some incredible footage. We had to up the price, of course, because we're bringing in, a team this year. We brought in our coach again, and it was incredible. Incredible is even an understatement. 100% of the people that responded to our survey said that they definitely would recommend it to a friend. And, this is like breaking news, but we're doing it again. And I opened it again only to the people who attended this year, and we're already 50% pre-booked. So,
wow.
So, this is something that people need and they wanted. I'm so proud with how it turned out. And, they pre-booked not knowing what the price is going to be, when it's going to be, where it's going to be. Like, I need to be there. So, it's just a good feeling to know that you're creating something that resonates, that people need, that they're willing to pay for, that they're willing to take risks themselves. Because like I said, it's not cheap. I'm looking for sponsors, to make it more kind of affordable and to democratize like people's ability to attend. So I don't know where I was going with this, but I just think, it was an incredible experience. There's a need there. I think, if niching were, if there were ever a commercial for niching, I think these in-person events would be it because, there is a community out there for what it is that you have to offer.
Yeah. And I can only imagine that the level of conversation, the level of sharing, the level of storytelling, the level of community building is like infinitely deeper when you're together like that in that intimate setting than it ever could be on a coffee chat on Zoom or a virtual conference chat. I mean, it's not even the same thing. It's not even the same thing. So
and it's interesting because I have those 2 perspectives, right? Like I have the mastermind community, which is completely virtual. And then I have the retreats, which is completely in person. So you're right. It takes a much longer time to kind of build up that authenticity and that culture and vibe that you're looking for over Zoom or over, kind of internet in any sort of way. I think I kind of have it down a little bit to a bit of a science, but, I think it also kind of just speaks to some of the strengths that I have and just kind of showing up authentically in any space. So some of the people who were part of our mastermind attended the retreat and it was just like a family reunion, like we have ideas of what people are like on Zoom when we do our meetings, but then meeting them is just like, literally, I think one of the women said, this is like meeting new people. And also, she said, and also coming to a family reunion at the same time,
Yeah.
So I think those in-person spaces definitely help cultivate that sort of environment.
Totally. And as we begin to think of our 2023, figuring out how we can, if it feels safe for us to do that, begin to incorporate that, because I think that the connective tissue, right, as our mutual friend, Dr. Keisha Harris says, the connective tissue that is built in person and those settings, like that is what leads to the visions that we're trying to create. And so that is a segue into this meaty last question that I have for you, which is really, what is your big dreamy vision for a just future, either for yourself or for the world, or both?
So my answer is the same for both. And I know that my dream is liberation. And I think that is going to be different for every person. And I think people need to do the work to determine what that means for them. For me, it means having choice, having freedom, having financial security, being able to do the kinds of things that I want to do in the ways that I want to do them, being a leader, creating more of these sorts of spaces to give other people permission. Not that I need to give them permission, but just helping them recognize their ability and the power within themselves to do the same for themselves. Because I think, a lot of the ways the systems are set up is that we have to rely so heavily on, government, or is someone going to give me a job, or, just lots of things. It puts us in almost a submissive kind of position. And that just doesn't sit well with me. And so if your goal is X, I want you to know that you have the power within yourself to find the community to help you get there, to kind of work yourself towards your vision, that you kind of bring things to the table already that will help you in that direction, that you don't need to rely on other people to reach whatever goals that you have. But I think the first step is figuring out what liberation means to you, and then pursue that. I think I never want to get on this high horse of like entrepreneurship and like, consulting or contract work is the way to go to be liberated. I do not agree with that. I think for the person that wants that, it's the way to go and they can do it. But I also think that, if comfort and safety and stability is your form of liberation, so that you can turn off and clock out and go do other things, do that. And just make sure that you're doing it so that it feels right for you. And once it stops feeling right for you, if you can't fix it, do something else and give yourself permission to be able to do that. So, I think that's the way I would answer, liberation. And so much is built into that: safety, security, freedom,
community,
right? Yeah.
Interdependence.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my big dream for all of us.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And that's the power of big dreams and vision, is when we speak them aloud. I think the people who have similar visions and dreams get to raise their hand and say, hey, let's make this happen together. Like, let's roll up our sleeves. So I'm here to do that in any way that I can. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast. What are some of the best places for people to find you online?
Thanks for that. LinkedIn is where I blab the most. So you can find me, my name, just look for my name, Kamilah Martin, on LinkedIn, and, follow me there. And, I'm happy to learn more about what other folks are doing as well. And then our website, Catalyst with a K, consult.com, are the two best ways to reach me and find out about what we do.
Love it. We'll put that in the show notes as well. And I definitely encourage you to go and connect. If you're listening, let's make this vision happen together. Liberation for all. Let's do it.
Absolutely, Tanya. And you've been there from the beginning. So I do want to send you a vast amount of appreciation. I don't remember how we connected. It might have been LinkedIn.
It was.
But, I reached out and you said yes. And we've been rolling for a while together. So I really appreciate what you've brought to me personally, as well as what you've brought to our community of nonprofit consultants. So you've been a gift to us as well. So thank you very much.
It was a total honor to come in and talk about my favorite thing, which is LinkedIn. And I made some amazing friends through that process. So that's the thing. When we bring our people together, it creates an even bigger community. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. There's enough for us all.
That's right. That's right. Thanks for being here, my friend.
Thank you, Tanya.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. This episode was brought to you by my group coaching program, The Kindling Collective. If you like this episode, you are going to love my free masterclass all about thought leadership on LinkedIn. I'm sharing the same proven 3-step framework I also teach in the Kindling Collective to spark change and raise revenue. You'll learn how to grow your influence and your visibility. And yes, we are definitely talking about overcoming that itty bitty shitty committee too. After all, your work is way too important to stay a best kept secret. So grab your link to apply in the show notes and I'll see you there.
What'd you think? Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or even better, reach out and let me know through lumosmarketing.co. Yes, that's Lumos, as in the illumination spell from Harry Potter. Because when you shine, magical things happen. You can get social with me on LinkedIn, and of course, check out the show notes to stay in touch with our guests. Let's talk soon.